Imagine, you are sitting in the morning on a bench in the park. Around you, the city is humming. Cars are driving by, people are rushing to work, and suddenly a small, gray-brown bird flies down to your feet. It tilts its head, looks with one eye, hops closer. A house sparrow. The most common, most ordinary, most unnoticeable bird on Earth. You would not even pay attention to it. And that is exactly the mistake, because behind this gray, indistinct appearance hides a creature that survived ice ages, conquered 6 continents, provoked one of the greatest famines in human history, and right now is quietly disappearing from our cities. And we almost do not notice it. Today I will tell you 100 facts about house sparrows, and I promise that in the middle of this video, you will learn something that will completely change your idea of this small bird. Stay until the end, you will not regret it. Let's begin. Fact 1. A house sparrow is not a sparrow. The house sparrow, the same one you see every day. According to scientific classification, it belongs to the family of weavers, and not to the family of true sparrows. For a long time, it was even considered a variety of weaver, an African bird that weaves complicated hanging nests from grass. Currently, it is classified in the family Passeridae, Old World sparrows. But formally, when you say house sparrow and imagine a small gray bird on the sidewalk, you mean an animal that is not so closely related to classic sparrows. Fact 2. The Latin name of the house sparrow is Passer domesticus. The word domesticus comes from the Latin domus, which means house. This name was given to it by Carolus Linnaeus himself in 1758. Its name is absolutely accurate. This bird literally cannot live without human habitation. Scientists have recorded cases when entire populations of house sparrows disappeared after people left their settlements. For them, we are not neighbors. We are their living environment. Fact 3. The house sparrow is one of the most widely distributed wild birds on the planet. It inhabits all continents except Antarctica. From the northernmost point of Scandinavia to the southern tip of Argentina, from dusty villages in India to skyscrapers in New York. Everywhere there are people, there are house sparrows. No people, no house sparrows. This connection is so strong that scientists use a special term, an anthropophilic species, dependent on humans, without us, nowhere. Fact 4. The body length of a house sparrow is only 16 centimeters. That is roughly the length of a ballpoint pen. Put a ballpoint pen on the table. That is how much space a house sparrow takes from beak to the end of the tail. Weight from 24 to 39.5 grams. An average house sparrow weighs about 28 grams. That is less than 2 tablespoons of sugar, less than a standard battery. A creature that fits in the palm of a child's hand, and yet one of the most successful on the planet. Fact 5. Despite its small size, the heart of a house sparrow beats with incredible speed. 460 beats per minute at rest. 460. For comparison, a human heart at rest makes about 78 beats. A house sparrow's works almost 6 times faster, and in flight the frequency increases even more. Because small birds need a sharp increase in oxygen supply to the flight muscles. Such a heart rate means that every second the tiny engine in the house sparrow's chest makes about 8 contractions. You will not have time to blink, and its heart has already beaten 4 times. Fact 6. The body temperature of a house sparrow is about 42 degrees Celsius. For a human, such a temperature would mean a severe fever and calling an ambulance. For a house sparrow, this is normal. It is precisely this heated metabolism that gives it energy for lightning flight and survival in a cool climate. A house sparrow is a small stove that operates at maximum power 24 hours a day. And the fuel for this stove is food, constant, non-stop eating. Fact 7. House sparrows do not walk, they hop. If you carefully observe house sparrows on the sidewalk, you will notice that they move in short, energetic hops, and not in steps like a pigeon or a crow. This is connected with the anatomy of their legs. They are too short and placed too close to each other for walking. Hopping with such a body structure is energetically more advantageous. A house sparrow pushes off with both legs at the same time, which gives it that characteristic fussy appearance that we all know well. Hop, 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 grabbed a crumb, hop, hop, flew away. Fact 8. There are about 25 species of the genus Passer in the world. Among them the Eurasian tree sparrow, the Mediterranean house sparrow, the cinnamon sparrow, the desert sparrow, and many others. But when we simply say house sparrow, almost always we mean the house sparrow, the most successful and most numerous of all. Scientists distinguish 12 subspecies of the house sparrow, and each has its own features of plumage and size adapted to the specific region of residence. Fact 9. A male can be distinguished from a female by one clear feature: a black bib on the breast, a spot on the throat and upper part of the chest. Females do not have it. Females are more modestly colored, pale brown and gray tones, almost camouflaging coloration. Males are brighter, with a contrasting black, white, and chestnut pattern on the head and wings. Young birds of both sexes resemble females, indistinct and pale. And this bib of the male is not only decoration, it is his passport, his business card. But more about that in a moment. Fact 10. House sparrows are not migratory birds. They live in one place all year round. Unlike swallows, storks, or cranes, a house sparrow does not fly away anywhere for the winter. It stays with you even when it is 20 below zero outside. Even when the city is covered with snow, it will sit fluffed up on a branch, spreading its feathers for thermal insulation, and wait until someone throws out a crust of bread. Its strategy is loyalty to the place, not migration. Fact 11. The flight speed of a house sparrow is from 24 to 38 kilometers per hour. This is not a record in the world of birds, of course. A peregrine falcon accelerates to over 300. But for a creature weighing 28 grams, this is impressive dynamics. Imagine an object the size of a tangerine that flies at the speed of a professional cyclist, and at the same time is able to change direction in the air in a fraction of a second, avoiding the claws of a hawk. That is exactly what a house sparrow is in flight. Fact 12. House sparrows are true evolutionary long livers. The genus Passer, to which they belong, arose presumably over 10 million years ago in the territory of the modern Middle East. 10 million years, when the ancestors of modern horses, the size of a large dog, and gigantic flightless birds still wandered the earth, house sparrows already existed. They survived climate changes, species extinctions, and the appearance of humans. They saw everything. Fact 13. During the last ice age about 20,000 years ago, the population of house sparrows sharply decreased. Most of Europe was covered with glaciers. The living environment became unsuitable for life. Forests receded, temperature dropped, but as soon as the climate began to warm, house sparrows rebuilt their numbers. They survived what mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and saber-toothed cats did not survive. The small gray bird turned out to be more viable than the giants. Fact 14. Scientists have described the house sparrow as an anthropophilic species, dependent on humans. Studies have shown that some populations of house sparrows literally died out after people left their villages and settlements. Without human buildings, without food waste, without grain in the fields, a house sparrow does not survive. It is attached to us at a biological level. This connection is confirmed by data from Marek Rumbach and his colleagues published in 2018. Fact 15. More than 7,000 scientific articles have been written about house sparrows. 7,000 is the number from a review paper published in the journal PLOS One. The house sparrow, one of the most studied wild birds on the planet. It has been used for research in the field of evolution, sexual selection, parasitology, behavioral ecology, neuroendocrinology, and even physiology of stress. If there existed a Nobel Committee for Service to Science among animals, the house sparrow would receive an award for length of service. Fact 16. Fact 17. A house sparrow nest is a creative mess in the best sense of the word. It is built from dry grass, feathers, scraps of paper, strings, threads, polyethylene, cotton wool, and generally everything that comes along. House sparrows nest in crevices of buildings, under roofs, in drain pipes, in lampposts, behind shop signs, in tree hollows, even in empty traffic lights. They are not picky. They need only a crevice of the right size and material for construction, and they will find the material in any city in the world. Fact 18. A female house sparrow lays from 1 to 8 eggs in one clutch, usually 4 or 5. And in one breeding season, there can be from 2 to 4 clutches. This means that one pair of house sparrows can theoretically produce up to 25 to 30 chicks per year. In practice, of course, far from all survive, but the reproductive potential is enormous. This is one of the reasons why house sparrows so quickly settle new territories. Fact 19. Incubation of eggs lasts from 10 to 14 days, and importantly, both parents incubate. The male and female take turns sitting on the eggs, each for several minutes. This is not mom's job. This is full teamwork. Moreover, if one of the partners dies, the other can try to continue incubation alone, and even bring the clutch to hatching. Fact 20. Chicks are fed by both parents by regurgitating food. In the first days of life, chicks receive almost exclusively insects. Protein is necessary for rapid growth of bones, feathers, and muscles. An adult house sparrow itself eats grain and seeds, but for its children, it turns into a determined hunter for caterpillars, aphids, flies, and spiders. Daily, a pair of parents can make several hundred flights to the nest with a full beak of prey. Several hundred flights every day for 2 weeks in a row. And now stop for a second. Have you ever observed how house sparrows feed chicks? How they fly up to a crevice under the roof with a stuffed beak, and from inside comes a deafening, demanding squeak. Write in the comments. Have you seen something like that? Where was it? On your balcony, under the roof of a summer house? In the city center? I am really curious. Fact 21. The black bib of a male house sparrow is literally his resume. A meta-analysis of studies published in the journal Behavioral Ecology by a group of Shinichi Nakagawa and his colleagues in 2007 confirmed that the size of the black spot on the throat is reliably associated with the dominant status of the bird. Males with a larger bib are older, more aggressive, and more often win in conflicts over food and territory. Other house sparrows see this spot and understand, before them is an experienced warrior. It is better not to argue with such a one. This is a visual label that saves energy on endless fights. Fact 22. The bib of a male changes size during winter, and this without a single new feather. The feathers on the throat have light beige tips. During winter, when the bird actively cleans its feathers and takes dust baths, these tips gradually wear off, revealing the dark melanin layer underneath them. The bib literally emerges, like a hidden inscription under worn paint. And what is most interesting, studies have shown that males with a large bib clean themselves more often and more intensively. They deliberately work on making their badge of distinction more visible. I admit, when I learned about this, I had to check it again, but it is confirmed. The work of Anders Muller, published in Behavioral Ecology and Sociobiology. Fact 23. The bib is a testosterone signal. Its size depends on the level of testosterone in the male's body. Higher testosterone, larger bib, more aggressive behavior, higher rank in the flock hierarchy. But there is a paradox here. Studies have revealed a U-shaped dependence. The largest bibs were possessed by both dominant males and the most subordinate. Scientists suggested that subordinate males with a large bib are young birds with high potential that have not yet taken their place in the hierarchy. In essence, a house sparrow wears its hormonal profile on its chest. Fact 24. House sparrows live in flocks with a clear social hierarchy. Inside the flock, there are dominant and subordinate individuals. Dominants have better access to food, to roosting places, to breeding partners. Subordinates wait their turn and avoid conflicts. This is not democracy. This is strict vertical power with visual marks of distinction. The hierarchy is established through a series of aggressive clashes, pushes, pecks, chases. But once the rank is determined, physical violence drops to a minimum. It is enough to show the bib. Fact 25. House sparrows are collective observers. Studies of house sparrow time budgets have shown that in a large flock, each individual house sparrow spends less time scanning the area in search of predators. More eyes, less work for each. This allows each individual bird to spend more time searching for food without sacrificing safety. Collective vigilance. A flock is not a crowd, it is a security system. Fact 26. House sparrows take dust baths. They lie on dry ground. They energetically beat dust with their wings and body as if bathing in water. The dust penetrates between the feathers, absorbs excess fat, and mechanically removes parasites, ticks, lice, and fleas. This is not dirt for dirt's sake. This is a hygienic procedure perfected by millions of years of evolution. House sparrows even defend their baths from other individuals. If you see a group of house sparrows arguing in a dusty hole, it is not a fight for food, it is a cue for the bathroom. Fact 27. House sparrows in cities have learned to use cigarette butts as a means against parasites. Researchers from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, led by Montserrat Suarez Rodriguez in 2012, discovered something amazing. House sparrows and house finches in Mexico City deliberately dismantle cigarette butts and weave the filters into their nests. In house sparrow nests, an average of 8 cigarette filters were found. Nicotine and other chemical substances in used filters repel mites and other parasites. The more filters in the nest, the fewer parasites. The result was published in the journal Biology Letters. This personally amazed me the most. A bird that has mastered chemical defense from human garbage. Self-medication based on nicotine. Fact 28. But this self-medication has a dark side. The same Mexican researchers in subsequent works established that nicotine causes genotoxic damage in chicks. In the blood of chicks from nests with a large number of cigarette filters, an increased number of chromosomal abnormalities was found. A house sparrow literally stands before a choice: parasites or poison. And it chooses poison because from ticks and lice, chicks die faster. This is not an ideal solution. This is a compromise in which there is no good option. Fact 29. House sparrows are opportunists in eating. Their basic diet is seeds and grain, but they eat literally everything they can find and swallow. Breadcrumbs, leftovers from dumpsters, pizza, rice, pasta, insects, spiders, fruits, berries, tree buds. Researchers from the Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology recorded how house sparrows steal food from robins. They pierce flowers to suck nectar, and even pick up pieces of meat. They are never picky. Fact 30. The song of a house sparrow is not exactly a song in our understanding, not the trills of a nightingale and not the melodies of a thrush. Its basic sound is a simple chirp, chirp. But scientists distinguish up to 4 different types of this sound, each with a different meaning. Unpaired males chirp especially often, up to 60 to 100 times per hour. This is a desperate and incessant cry. I am here, I am free, I have a nest, pay attention to me. Females chirp much less often, about 4 times per hour. They do not need to advertise themselves, they choose. Fact 31. House sparrows are smarter than they seem, much smarter. In 1991, scientists Randall and Michelle Brightsmith recorded and described incredible behavior. House sparrows in Oakland and New Zealand learned to activate sensors of automatic doors in supermarkets. The bird would fly up to the infrared sensor. The doors would open. The house sparrow would fly inside and feed. The observation was published in the journal The Wilson Journal of Ornithology. Since then, similar behavior has been recorded in restaurants, hardware stores, and cafes around the world. Honestly, when I learned about this, what struck me most was not that they do it, but that they learned it themselves. Fact 32. House sparrows are capable of social learning. If one house sparrow finds a new source of food or masters a new trick, others quickly adopt this experience by observing a successful companion. The flock acts like a distributed network of scouts. Everyone is both a student and a teacher at the same time. This is not blind instinct. This is cultural transmission of skills, even at the level of watch how he does it and repeat. Fact 33. A house sparrow sees the world differently than we do. Its eyes are placed on the sides of the head, which gives it a panoramic view of almost 360 degrees. It sees simultaneously in front of itself, behind itself, and on both sides. When a house sparrow tilts its head and looks at you with one eye, it is not examining you. It turns on binocular vision to assess distance, and with the other eye at that moment, it controls the rest of the space. Sneaking up on a house sparrow is an almost impossible task. Fact 34. House sparrows distinguish the ultraviolet spectrum. A human has 3 types of color receptors, cones for red, green, and blue. House sparrows have 4, including an ultraviolet receptor. The world for them is literally brighter and more complex than for us. Plumage that seems gray and boring to us, for another house sparrow can shine and shimmer in the ultraviolet range. We see a gray bird. They see each other in colors that we cannot even imagine. Fact 35. House sparrows in the city sleep in groups. On cold nights, they gather in dozens, and even hundreds. In protected places, under roofs, in building niches, in dense bushes, behind billboards, they huddle together to retain heat. This is called communal roosting. The temperature in the center of such a living heater is several degrees higher than outside. Collective survival in its most literal form. Cuddle up so as not to freeze. Fact 36. House sparrows appeared in North America not by themselves. A specific person brought them. In 1851, Nicholas Pike, director of the Brooklyn Institute, released 8 pairs of house sparrows brought from England on the shore of the East River in Brooklyn in New York. The goal was to fight the caterpillars of the gypsy moth that were destroying city trees. The first batch did not take, but Pike did not give up. In 1853, he personally went to Liverpool, bought about 100 birds and brought them back across the Atlantic. He released some near the Strait-on-Rose, some in Greenwood Cemetery. That was the beginning. Fact 37. By 1900, the house sparrow reached the Rocky Mountains. In half a century, a bird weighing 28 grams conquered the entire continent. Additional releases in San Francisco and Salt Lake City at the beginning of the 1870s helped. People themselves transported house sparrows around cities, set up nesting boxes for them, cleared the territory of predators. It was a real cult of introduction, and its consequences were irreversible. Fact 38. The main secret of the house sparrow's success in America in the 19th century? Horses. All city transport was horse-drawn. Horses left undigested grain on the roads. The chaff from horse manure became an endless Swedish table for house sparrows. Every stable, every feeder, every sidewalk was a source of food. The entire transport infrastructure of a huge country worked for one small bird. Fact 39. When the car replaced the horse, it became worse for house sparrows. The streets became cleaner, the grain disappeared from the roads, stables were closed. The historian of ornithology, Dennis Summers Smith, described this period as the first serious blow to urban house sparrows. Still in the first half of the 20th century, long before the modern ecological crisis. The first wave of decline. The second turned out to be much more terrible. Fact 40. Today in the United States, there live about 7 million house sparrows. The number seems huge, but in 1940, there were about 150 million. According to data from the American Bird Conservancy, a decline of more than 20-fold in 8 decades, and the causes are not fully established. Industrialization of agriculture is one of the main hypotheses. Fact 41. In Europe, the picture is even more gloomy. According to data from a joint report of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, BirdLife International, and the Czech Ornithological Society, from 1980 to 2017, Europe lost 247 million house sparrows. 247 million is half of the entire European population that vanished in less than 4 decades. For comparison, this is more than the population of France, Germany, and Spain taken together. Only these are not people. These are birds, and therefore few know about it. Fact 42. In London, a city that could not be imagined without house sparrows, the numbers fell by 71% since 1995. In 20 years, almost 3/4 of the population disappeared. The bird that was an integral part of the London landscape for centuries has become a rarity in this city. In Great Britain, the house sparrow has been placed on the red list of species of greatest conservation concern. The red list for house sparrows. Fact 43. In Paris, the situation is even more dramatic. A 15-year study conducted from 2003 to 2017 and covering almost 200 observation points recorded a decline in house sparrow numbers of 89%. The work was published in the peer-reviewed journal Urban Ecosystems. This is one of the most densely populated cities in Europe, and in it the house sparrow has become an endangered species. Honestly, when I read this number, it seemed unbelievable to me, but the data exist and are confirmed. Fact 44. The causes of the disappearance of urban house sparrows are still not definitively established. This is one of those situations in science when the honest answer sounds, we do not know for sure. Among the hypotheses, lack of insects to feed chicks, air pollution, constant urban noise, electromagnetic radiation from cell phone base stations, the spread of avian malaria, the disappearance of suitable nesting places. Most likely a combination of factors is at work, but no researcher can yet point a finger and say, this is it, definitely this. Fact 45. One of the most convincing studies was conducted by a group of William Peach from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds in Great Britain. They worked in Leicester and discovered that the main cause of high chick mortality was ordinary hunger. Chicks died from lack of insects. When scientists began to supplement the colony with mealworms, adding the missing protein, Breeding success increased by 55%. A simple solution, but on the scale of a metropolis, almost impossible to implement. Fact 46. Avian malaria is another suspect. A study conducted in the suburbs of London from 2006 to 2009 showed that the parasite Plasmodium relictum, the causative agent of avian malaria, was detected in London house sparrows with an average prevalence of 74%. This is a record for a wild bird population in northern Europe. 3/4 of house sparrows are infected, and the survival of young and adult birds was negatively associated with the intensity of infection. Fact 47. Modern architecture is a silent enemy of house sparrows. Old buildings with crevices in the wall, gaps under cornices, niches in walls were ideal places for nests. But modern facades, smooth, insulated, airtight, ventilation openings closed with grills, crevices filled with putty. Every major renovation, every insulation of a facade, every restoration is a destroyed nest that has nowhere to arise again. Fact 51. Hundreds of millions of people were mobilized to destroy house sparrows. Children from 5 years old people, workers, students, everyone was brought out to war with the bird. House sparrows were shot with slingshots, caught with nets, nests were destroyed, eggs were smashed, chicks were killed. The most massive and terrifying method. Thousands of people stood for hours on streets and fields, banging pots, basins, and drums, not allowing house sparrows to land. The birds circled in the air until they fell dead from exhaustion. It was organized everywhere. It was systematic. Fact 52. According to incomplete official data, only in 1958, no fewer than 200 million house sparrows were destroyed. Some sources give the number of 2 billion birds over the entire campaign. Accurate data is impossible to reconstruct. It was a time of propaganda, overfulfillment, and reports on exceeding the plan, not objective statistics. But the scale of destruction is not questioned by anyone. Fact 53. The consequences came instantly. Without house sparrows, the population of locusts and other pest insects exploded. The house sparrow was a key predator controlling the numbers of insects. When it was removed, there was no one to restrain them. Huge swarms of locusts fell on the fields. Hundreds of thousands of tons of grain were destroyed. An ecosystem from which one small element was torn out collapsed like a house of cards. Fact 54. The Great Chinese Famine lasted from 1959 to 1961. According to various estimates, from 15 to 55 million people died. The causes of the famine were complex and numerous. Forced collectivization, drought, catastrophic agrarian policy, but the destruction of house sparrows played a measurable, documented role in this tragedy. A small gray bird and millions of lives. Fact 55. In 1960, Mao admitted the mistake. The house sparrow was quietly excluded from the list of 4 pests and replaced by the bedbug. To restore the ecosystem, China imported 250,000 house sparrows from the Soviet Union as an emergency winged rescue package. But the ecosystem was already destroyed. The consequences were felt for many more years. Fact 56. Tell me honestly, did you know this story? Did you know that the small gray bird that we do not notice on the windowsill once became one of the causes of the most massive famine in human history? Write in the comments whether this was a surprise for you. For me, this story remains one of the most shocking examples of how fragile the balance of nature is. Fact 57. In 2025, economist Eyal Frank from the University of Chicago, together with colleagues, published a working paper for the National Bureau of Economic Research in which he quantitatively assessed the consequences of the destruction of house sparrows in China. The study confirmed that local liquidation of house sparrows had direct statistically significant consequences for grain yields and the level of mortality from famine in the affected regions. Fact 58. A house sparrow is not only a grain eater. In the breeding season, it turns into an active, purposeful hunter for insects. One pair of house sparrows in a season destroys many thousands of caterpillars, aphids, beetles, and larvae. It was precisely this ecosystem role that Chinese officials did not take into account. They saw only the grain that the house sparrow eats. They did not see the locusts that it catches. A classic case when solving a problem creates a problem 10 times larger. Fact 59. The conflict between humans and the house sparrow is not only Chinese history. In North America, back in 1889, Walter Barrows from the Biological Survey of the USA published a 400-page report, The English Sparrow in North America, and recommended creating clubs for the organized extermination of house sparrows. In 1903, the ornithologist William Dawson wrote, "Without doubt, the most regrettable event in the history of American ornithology is the introduction of the English sparrow." The war on house sparrows is a global tradition. Fact 60. In North America, the house sparrow is officially recognized as an invasive species. It aggressively displaces native birds from nests, including eastern bluebirds, purple martins, and black-capped chickadees. House sparrows take over nesting boxes and are not shy about throwing out birds that are already incubating a clutch. Cases have been documented when house sparrows killed chicks and even adult birds of competing species directly in the nest. This is not nice. This is tough. Fact 61. Paradox. The house sparrow is one of the few species of wild birds in North America that is not protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. The reason is simple. The law covers only native species. The house sparrow is alien. Legally, you can keep it as a pet, you can catch it, you can do whatever you want with it. The legal system does not consider it its own, although it has lived on the continent for almost 200 years. Fact 62. The house sparrow is one of the oldest cultural birds of humanity. In ancient Egypt, house sparrows were considered sacred. They were associated with the goddess Isis, patroness of children, women, and nature. Egyptians believed that house sparrows catch the souls of the dead and carry them to the afterlife. The hieroglyph depicting a house sparrow was used in writing to denote the concepts small, narrow, or bad. But at the same time, the bird itself was a symbol of fertility and rebirth. Duality of attitude that has survived to our times. Fact 63. In ancient Greece, the house sparrow was the sacred bird of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. It was believed that house sparrows symbolized passion, fidelity, and true love. They were depicted pulling the chariot of Aphrodite alongside doves and swans. The irony is that ancient authors at the same time considered the house sparrow one of the most lustful and insatiable birds. It looks like the Greeks saw no contradiction in this, but unity. Fact 64. In the Bible, the house sparrow is one of the most famous symbols of God's care. In the Gospel according to Matthew, it says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father?" 1 farthing is the smallest Roman coin, about 1/16 of a denarius. A house sparrow costs literally half a penny, and still it is not forgotten. This image is one of the most powerful messages about the value of every living creature. Fact 65. In Japan, the house sparrow is called Suzume and occupies an important place in folklore. The famous Japanese fairy tale, The Sparrow with the Cut Tongue, Shitakiri Suzume, tells about a kind old man, an evil old woman, and a house sparrow that rewards kindness and punishes greed. This fairy tale is part of the classics of Japanese children's literature and is known to every Japanese person from childhood. The house sparrow in Japanese culture is a wise, faithful, and just character. Fact 66. In China, the house sparrow is a symbol of happiness and spring. If a house sparrow flies into a house, it is considered a good sign. In Indonesia, a house sparrow in the house foretells a wedding or the birth of a child. When house sparrows sing in chorus, expect rain. In many cultures, killing a house sparrow is considered a bad omen, a superstition that has survived millennia, and taken into account the history of China from 58, maybe it is not such a superstition. Fact 66. Sailors tattooed themselves a house sparrow after 5,000 nautical miles of sailing, a second after 10,000. The tradition dates back to ancient Egypt. It was believed that if a sailor drowned, the house sparrow bird would carry his soul to heaven. 5,000 nautical miles is about 9,200 kilometers, more than the distance from Moscow to Vladivostok. Each such tattoo is not decoration, but a sign of survival. Fact 67. House sparrows can live for months inside closed buildings. There are documented cases when house sparrows settled inside large shopping centers, stations, warehouses, and even airports, feeding on crumbs from visitors and nesting on beams under the ceiling. For them, a large building is simply a big warm cave with an endless source of food. Staff try to drive them out. House sparrows return again and again. Fact 68. House sparrows are capable of functioning at altitudes over 6,000 meters. Experiments in a pressure chamber showed that when simulating an altitude of 6,100 meters, this is the altitude at which an untrained human loses consciousness. House sparrows remained active and coordinated. Their oxygen consumption increased more than twofold, but they still moved normally. Mice in the same conditions were on the verge of death. The secret lies in the structure of bird lungs. They pass air in one direction, providing much more efficient gas exchange than our lungs with their two-way air movement. Fact 69. The oldest known house sparrow, a female, ringed in Texas. When she was found again in 2004 in the same state, she was at least 15 years and 9 months old. According to data from the Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology, this is an absolute record for the species. For a bird weighing less than 30 grams, this is an amazing period. The average lifespan in the wild is only from 2 to 3 years. Most do not live to their first birthday. Fact 70. The probability of death of a house sparrow in the first year of life exceeds 50%. Predators, hunger, cold, diseases, cats, cars, windows that birds hit. The list of threats is endless. Every house sparrow you see on the windowsill or on the asphalt is a survivor, a statistical winner. Every day it lives is a small victory over probability. Fact 71. Cats are one of the main killers of house sparrows. According to estimates by researchers from the Smithsonian Institution, only in the United States domestic and feral cats kill from 1 to 4 billion birds per year. Billions. House sparrows that forage on the ground and nest low are particularly vulnerable. One domestic cat that is allowed to go outside can destroy dozens of house sparrows during a season. Fact 72. In addition to cats, sparrowhawks, kestrels, owls, crows, magpies, rats, snakes, and even large spiders in tropical regions hunt house sparrows. In cities, the main destroyers of nests have become rats that climb into crevices of buildings and devour eggs and helpless chicks. An urban house sparrow lives surrounded by enemies. Every day is an obstacle course. Fact 73. A house sparrow is able to lower its body temperature at night to save energy. This is controlled hypothermia. The body deliberately slows down metabolism to survive a cold night with minimal energy expenditure. During the day, normal 42 degrees, at night about 23 degrees less. In the morning, the temperature returns to normal. This is a built-in energy-saving mode, like sleep mode in a computer, only biological. Fact 74. House sparrow chicks have bright yellow folds, fleshy extensions of skin, in the corners of the beak. They serve as a target for parents. In the semi-darkness of the nest, these bright spots are clearly visible, and the parent knows exactly where to put the food. The brighter and larger the folds, the healthier the chick. Dull, small, a signal that something is wrong with the chick. This is a biological health indicator built directly into the anatomy. Fact 75. A house sparrow changes its diet depending on the season. In winter, mainly seeds, grain, and human food leftovers. In spring and summer, much more insects, especially during the period of feeding chicks. In autumn, berries and fruits are added. This nutritional plasticity is one of the main reasons for its evolutionary success. It is not dependent on one source of food. It is not picky. It adapts to what is available. Fact 76. The diet of urban and rural house sparrows differs significantly. Urban house sparrows receive a significant part of calories from human food leftovers. Crumbs, fast food leftovers, scattered grain. The problem is that this food is poor in protein and rich in carbohydrates, and protein is critically necessary for the growth of chicks. Studies by Frédéric Angelier and his colleagues from the French Center for Biological Research in Chizé showed that it is precisely this deficiency of insect food in cities that is a key factor lowering the survival of urban chicks. Adults survive, chicks do not. Fact 77. Every year on the 20th of March, World Sparrow Day is celebrated. The initiative appeared in India in 2010 at the proposal of the Nature Forever Society organization and quickly gained support around the world. The goal? To draw attention to the decline in house sparrow numbers and their importance for urban ecosystems. Many European countries organize actions on this day to install nesting boxes and green courtyards. Fact 78. In some cities of the world, programs to save house sparrows are already operating. Special nesting boxes are installed on building facades. Green corridors with bushes and trees are created. Wild plants that attract insects are planted. In Amsterdam, London, Delhi, and Prague, sparrow streets have appeared. Zones specially designed so that it is comfortable for small birds in them. Niches for nests, feeders, drinking places, hedges. Fact 79. A house sparrow is an indicator of city health. If house sparrows disappear, it means that something seriously wrong is happening with the ecological system. Lack of insects, air pollution, excessive noise, lack of greenery. All this affects the population of house sparrows earlier than on our well-being. They're like a canary in a coal mine. Only the scale is not a mine, but an entire metropolis. When house sparrows disappeared from London, ecologists across Europe took it as a disturbing signal. Fact 80. Here's a question for you. Look around. Remember your courtyard, your street, your neighborhood? How many house sparrows do you see today compared to what you remember from childhood? More? Fewer? Or have you just stopped noticing them? Write in the comments. It is important for me what you see. Every observation matters. Fact 81. House sparrows are wonderful parents. Both partners feed the chicks, both incubate the eggs, both protect the nest from enemies. The male does not abandon the family. He works on equal terms with the female and often even more. Moreover, the male begins to build the nest even before he finds a partner. The nest is his proposal, his property, his main argument in the fight for the female's attention. Without a nest, there is no family. Fact 82. House sparrow chicks leave the nest about 14 to 16 days after hatching, 2 weeks. In this time, a naked pink ball the size of a fingernail turns into a full-fledged feathered bird capable of flying. The speed of development is incredible. This is an evolutionary strategy. The faster the chick leaves the nest, the less chance that a rat, crow, or cat will find it. Speed is life. Fact 83. Young house sparrows, after leaving the nest, remain under the care of parents for another 7 to 10 days. They learn to find food, avoid predators, orient themselves in the area. Parents feed them, call them, warn of danger. This is a critical period. Without this care, most young die in the first days after fledging. Fact 84. If a house sparrow has survived the first year of life, its chances of surviving the next year increase dramatically. This is the effect of experience. It has learned to avoid cats. It has found good feeding places. It knows where the best shelters are. This is misfortune. This is a survival skill that accumulates with every day. Fact 85. Urban heat island. The effect by which the temperature in the city center is several degrees higher than in the suburbs simultaneously helps and harms house sparrows. In winter, a little warmer, easier to survive, less energy goes to heating. But in summer, nests under heated metal roofs and in niches of concrete walls can overheat. Chicks in such nests suffer from thermal stress. The city gives, and the city takes away. Fact 86. Noise is one of the underestimated factors harming urban house sparrows. Studies by Frederick Engelier and his colleagues from the Center for Biological Research in Chile show that chronic urban noise disrupts communication between birds, raises stress hormone levels, and lowers reproductive success. A house sparrow that cannot normally hear an alarm signal or a partner's call. This is a house sparrow in danger. Fact 87. The genome of the house sparrow has been completely deciphered. This opens up enormous opportunities for studying genetic adaptations that have allowed the house sparrow to become one of the most successful species on Earth. Of particular interest are genes associated with starch digestion. Scientists suggest that mutations in these genes allowed the house sparrow to switch to a grain diet exactly when people began to cultivate the land, about 10,000 years ago. Humans invented agriculture. The house sparrow adapted and stayed. Fact 88. The hypothesis that the house sparrow domesticated itself simultaneously with the Neolithic Revolution is confirmed by genetic data. When people began to cultivate wheat and barley in the Middle East, house sparrows came to their fields and settlements and stayed forever. 10,000 years side by side, this is much longer than the age of most world civilizations. Egypt, Rome, Byzantium, all arose and fell, and the house sparrow still lived next to humans. Fact 89. In the Russian language, the word vorobe House sparrow, according to one of the etymological versions, is connected with the old Russian root vor, the one who steals. Vorobe, beat the thieving bird that is chased away from the grain. Another version connects the word with sound imitation, vor, imitating chirping. There is also a third, connection with the word vorkovat, to coo. Whichever is true, the very name of the bird contains a characteristically human approach, cautious, ironic, but without real anger. Fact 90. Urban house sparrows chirp at higher frequencies than their rural counterparts. This is not a mutation or evolution in the classical sense. This is behavioral plasticity, the ability to change their vocalizations during life. They literally raise the tone of their voice so that it is audible through the roar of cars, air conditioners, and construction equipment. Real-time adaptation to a world that is becoming louder and louder. Fact 91. House sparrows use sentinels. When a flock forages on the ground, one or several birds take a position on elevated points, on a branch, on a wire, on a fence, on a roof, and observe the situation. When a predator appears, the sentinel gives a sharp alarm cry, and the entire flock immediately rises into the air in one cloud. Coordination at the level of a military unit. No one appoints sentries. Roles arise spontaneously, but the system works. Fact 92. House sparrows are able to remember the location of feeders and return to them day after day at the same time. If you feed house sparrows every morning at 8 o'clock, after a week, they will be waiting for you exactly at 8 o'clock. They have an internal biological clock and synchronize it with your schedule. This is not a reflex. This is spatial and temporal memory. Fact 93. House sparrows have adapted to electric light. In cities, they can continue foraging much longer after sunset than their rural relatives, using street lighting. This gives additional time to search for food, an important advantage in winter when daylight hours shrink to a minimum. But there is also a flip side. Artificial light disrupts their circadian rhythms, can disturb seasonal hormonal cycles, and potentially increases stress levels. Fact 94. In India, the disappearance of house sparrows from cities caused nationwide social campaigns. In Delhi, volunteers install thousands of nesting boxes, conduct ecology lessons in schools, shoot documentaries. Mohammed Dilawar, founder of the Nature Forever Society, was named an environmental hero by Time magazine. The house sparrow has become a symbol of ecological awakening for the entire country. A small bird and millions of people who decided to fight for it. Fact 95. For decades, house sparrows have been used to study the physiology of stress, their corticosterone response. The hormonal reaction to danger is perfectly documented and has become a standard for comparative endocrinology. Scientists use house sparrows as a model organism to understand how chronic stress from noise, pollution, and overcrowding affects health, immunity, and lifespan. Results obtained on house sparrows help to understand the mechanisms of stress in all vertebrates, including us. Fact 96. Here is a fact that makes you think. The house sparrow is one of the few animal species that deliberately followed human civilization across the entire planet. No one domesticated it, tamed it, selected it, bred it. It simply followed us from the Middle East to Europe, from Europe across the Atlantic, from continent to continent like a shadow. 10,000 years in a row, and this was its choice, not ours. Fact 97. House sparrows that were transported to other continents began to evolve. North American house sparrows already noticeably differ from their European ancestors in size, coloration, physiology. This is happening right now before our eyes in real time. Evolution that can be observed not over millions of years, but over decades. The house sparrow is a living laboratory of adaptation. Fact 98. If all the house sparrows of the world disappeared, the consequences would be felt by each of us. Without house sparrows, more pest insects. More pests, smaller harvests. Smaller harvests, more expensive food. This is not a hypothesis. This has already happened once in China. In 1958, without house sparrows, without balance, without food, catastrophe. Fact 99. A house sparrow proves a simple but forgotten truth. In nature, there are no ordinary or unimportant species. Every element of the ecosystem is connected with others. Remove one thread, and the fabric begins to unravel. We have become accustomed to fighting to save tigers, whales, pandas, large, beautiful, photogenic. And the most important species often turn out to be the most unnoticeable, Small, gray, so ordinary that we stop seeing them. Fact 100. A house sparrow is a mirror, a small, gray, inconspicuous mirror in which everything we do with this planet is reflected. When cities were alive with green courtyards, with insects in the grass, with old houses full of crevices and niches, house sparrows were everywhere. Their chirping was as natural as the sound of rain. When we flooded everything with concrete, exterminated insects with chemicals, and sealed every crevice with plastic, house sparrows began to leave quietly, without panic, without headlines in the news, without protests and petitions. They simply stopped being. And in this silent disappearance, there is something terrifying, because we are losing not exotics, not the Amur tiger that most of us have never seen alive, not the blue whale that is thousands of miles away. We are losing what was with us every day, every morning, on every windowsill, with every piece of bread. A house sparrow is not just a bird. This is 100,000 years of shared history. This is a creature that chose us back when we were just learning to sow the first grain. It survived ice ages, wars, empires, and revolutions. It even survived deliberate extermination by an entire country, and now it is quietly leaving. Not because we decided to kill it, but because we created a world in which there is no longer room for life. And if this bird, which for 10,000 years did not leave us for a day, is beginning to leave, maybe it is worth stopping and thinking, not about house sparrows, about ourselves. If this information was useful, I will be grateful for support. Leave a like, subscribe to the Wild Planet channel, share this video with those who love nature. See you, M.